Okay, so this video is definitely not something I have ever done before, but it's basically just gonna be me telling you my fan fiction. Like, I was trying to come up with something like, well, no, it's not exactly that, but no, that's totally what this is. So basically what happened was, I'm doing this question and answer thing with Casey tonight, actually. I'm going to go over to her place. We're going to film that. But today, a few days ago, I was going through the questions that we were going to get, and I was making them into a list and all that crap. One of the questions was basically like, if you could create your own anime or something, what would it be? And that question in particular, the past 2 days, has just really stuck in my head. So I was just kind of like, I was at work, and work is kind of boring and dull. So I'm sitting there at work, ringing customers out, and just, what? Okay, that's something my mind can do. And so I slowly began to construct sort of like a story, and I thought, all right, this isn't bad. So I'm just gonna tell you this. I'm not the kind of guy that's like, hey guys, please listen to my fan fiction and tell me what you think. No, I just, this has been on my mind for like 2 days, and I feel like I just need to put this out there. All right, so um, I'm just gonna tell you the full fucking my fucking idea. All right, and here's how it is. Okay, because I suck at writing. I've tried it before. I've tried to sit down and fucking write fan fiction out, but I can never get far with it because I just wanna. I can't just write it out because that takes time. I wish I could just take all my thoughts and just throw it onto word form. Like I have an idea and then just chuck it at my computer and it's like 10 pages worth of shit right there. But unfortunately, that technology doesn't work. And I've tried like voice to text. It doesn't work. I just need to get the ideas. The only way I can do it is to fucking explain it. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so this is my idea for an anime, just built up. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. All right. It's going to take place in our world. It's going to take place in the modern world, 2017, on the planet Earth, in our universe. Same everything, electricity, internet, Facebook, YouTube, all that crap. It's the same. Except we're going to expand a little bit on the universe. We're going to expand a little bit more on how the universe really works and, all that stuff. And aliens in particular. There's going to be a few aliens in this one. The aliens that we're going to focus on are these giant... they're not even the kind of aliens that live in technologically advanced cities, or that they go around the universe in spaceships. These are the kind of aliens that are like they are like beyond physical form. They're just basically giant balls of light. They're like at a stage in evolution that's beyond human beings. Like they're a few notches above us. They have the ability to like move matter around with just a thought. That's all they are, is just like a consciousness. They can create things, they can destroy things pretty much whenever they want. They can create little pocket universes, and they can do anything they want with that. That's what these things are, and they're just like giant balls of light, and they exist. There's one of these in each galaxy. Each galaxy works as like a nest for these things. So like at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, one of these things is existing there, and like in Andromeda has one, and like all these galaxies around us have one of these things living in them. Now, the way I'm setting it up, you might think these things are basically like gods. They're not. Don't think of them that way. They're not immortal, they're not all-knowing, they're not omniscient, they can't go anywhere in the universe they want, there's even limits to things that they can create. Like, they couldn't destroy the entire universe en masse if they wanted to. Like, a planet or two, that's not a big deal for them, but they couldn't wipe out the universe. They don't have all knowledge of the universe in their consciousness. They're imperfect. They have a lifespan. Like, humans can live, like 100 years if we're lucky. These things can live, like, millions of years. Maybe, like, 100 million years would be, like, the cap-off for these things. But, if you know anything about the age of the universe is, like, 14 billion years old. So, a species of alien that exists for a few million years, yeah, to a human, that's godly, but to them, it's really nothing. To the universe, it's really nothing. They still have things like emotion and stuff like that. They still have the ability to feel anger and joy, and or like an equivalence of that, jealousy and things of that nature. They can communicate with each other. And it's just these species of alien that just happens to exist in our little area. They're not even like spread out throughout the entire universe. I don't want you to think like these things are like the gods of the entire universe that are hanging out. No, it's just like one particular species of alien that just happens to exist in these giant forms of of light, and they only kind of exist around our general, like, the Virgo supercluster area of the universe, which, if you know anything about the universe, that's not really that big of a part. The universe is made up of, like, I think at a low estimate, like 100 billion galaxies. There could be much more than that. So let's say these things only occupy like 1% of those galaxies, which is still an incredibly high amount of galaxies, but it's just like, just the few galaxies that exist in our, like, Virgo superclustery area, and one galaxy each. These things just kind of nest in the center of it. And the relationship that these aliens have to the forms of life that exist on, like the relationship these things would have to human beings living on Earth, this little blue marble out in the middle of nowhere on the far reach arm of the Milky Way galaxy, it would be like the relationship you have with, like, the ants living in your backyard. Like, yeah, I know right now there's a bunch of insects and things living in my backyard. Most people don't care about it. They're completely indifferent towards them. Some people might be like, they're an infestation, I gotta get rid of them. Some people might be like, I'm gonna study them and look at how they move and stuff. And that's so interesting. But the vast majority of people are completely indifferent to the ants living in their backyard. Same deal with these things. They know that, they have pretty good, view of, like, their own galaxy. Like, they know pretty much where everything's at in their own galaxies, like which planets are full of life, which planets have like nothing on it that are completely dead, the planets that might harbor life at some point, where all the different, asteroids are and everything. They have because it's basically their nest, it's their home, so they know a good idea about that. But they don't care, it's just like, yeah, over on that little blue marble out in the middle of, like, nowhere, there's some insects living, some ants, some humans or whatever, they don't care. If they wanted to, like I said, some of them they have emotions, so some of them are more prone to anger, so if they really wanted to, they could wipe out all existence in their galaxy. They can destroy all other forms of life in their galaxy. It wouldn't bother them none. Others are a little bit more compassionate. They might like Buddhists. They might sit there and like just I'm sensing all of the life in my galaxy and I'm taking it all in and I'm observing it. But most of them are just indifferent towards it. And they don't have rules. It's not like we are all banded together here under these set of rules. We shall only observe. We will not interfere. Like Doctor Who has that. Like Time Lords are not supposed to interfere. They're only supposed to observe. Fuck it. These things can interfere if they want. They want to destroy everything. Fine. If they want to create a new planet or whatever, they don't care. There's no rules here. They don't have like obligations or anything. They don't have to listen to whims. They just exist and they're just there. Okay, so that's what these things are, right? So the one that's in our galaxy, like I said, some are, angry, some are more compassionate, some are whatever. The one living in the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way, is sort of like the weird one. He's the one that's sort of paying attention to things that the other members of his species don't care about. Most of them just sit around and just kind of like contemplate in their own consciousness, think about like the vastness of the universe. And there's even places in the universe that they're afraid of that they don't know anything about. So they're just kind of sitting there observing. But there's this one of this species that's in our galaxy, and he's just kind of like the weird kid that like watches the anthill. And so this one is particularly interested in the planets in his galaxy. And he just kind of sits there and just kind of watches them and observes them. And all the other members of his, let's just call them, I guess, the cosmic entities. All the other members of, like, the cosmic entities are just like, okay, you're weird. You're just watching ants. Just, okay, that's strange. You could be over here contemplating the true meaning of existence, because there's even a greater purpose. Maybe there's even, like, a greater aliens beyond even them. They're not the end-all, be-all. But they're, to a human, these things are gods. Well, anyway, this thing is just going around, it's the Milky Way galaxy, and I'm gonna have, like, other planets in the Milky Way that harbor life. They might be on the same level as us, they might be a little bit more technologically advanced as us, but this thing just, passively, in its millions of years of existence, is just observing. And, these things, sometimes they could be like, I'm bored, so I'm just gonna go dormant for a few million years and wake up and see what happens there, whatever, to pass the time. So eventually it focuses on Earth. It eventually stumbles upon Earth and it starts observing Earth. But the thing is, it's not really interested in us because he finds us kind of boring, like human beings just doing our human being thing, building cities, going to war, religions and shit. It finds that part of it kind of boring. But the part that it really finds interesting are the things that we create. Like our works of fiction, like poetry and like movies and books and anime and manga and video games. Like those are the things that it finds really interesting. Like it starts to be really interested in the works of fiction that we're creating, and that makes it even more of a weirdo. Like okay, wait, so you're not observing ants, you're observing the creations of ants. And like, yeah, you don't get it. Like, this anime stuff is, like, really good. And the other entities are just like, okay, you are weird, man. You just stay away from us, okay? You can be over here. Because this would be like if you went outside and you were not just obsessed with the anthill, you weren't the weird guy watching an anthill. It would be like if the ants were like putting like, blades of grass together or gathering like little pebbles, and you were really interested in that pile of pebbles. You're like, holy shit, come check out these ants. The ants aren't really interesting, but these piles of pebbles, it's amazing. You'd be like, okay, there's something wrong with you, man. But anyway, it starts taking in all of the culture from the planet Earth, all this fiction that we're creating, and it's particularly interested in anime. It really enjoys anime, particularly shonen anime. So like Yu Yu Hakusho, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Hunter x Hunter, Dragon Ball, like that kind of anime it's really into. So it's kind of like an otaku alien that's capable of like creating, whatever he wants, to a human, anything that we could possibly think of, because it's beyond physical matter and everything like that. Yeah, and keep in mind, because these things live so long, have you ever had like an idea that passes in your head and you only last like a few minutes, maybe an hour or two, and then you move on with the rest of your life? Like, I remember one time I was sitting around, I was bored, and I was thinking, you know what, I want to learn how to juggle today. And so I grabbed a bunch of balls around my house. I have quite a bit of balls lying around my house. And I pulled up some YouTube videos, and for like the next hour, I was fiddle fucking around trying to learn how to juggle. And then after an hour, I couldn't do it, and I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I trying to learn how to juggle? So I threw all the balls away, and I completely forgot. All that interest I had completely disappeared in like the matter of like a minute. And I went back to doing whatever I was doing. It's the same deal with these things, except an hour to these things is like 1,000 years. So it just has like a passing thought in its head, just a passing interest in our planet. And, it can move, like, okay, anime's stupid, I'm gonna move on to something else. To this thing, it's only a matter of minutes or hours. But to us, it's like thousands of years. And keep in mind, this thing can like digest, it can like absorb all of this stuff in an instant. It can absorb all of our books and poetry and everything in just like a few seconds. It just assimilates into this thing's consciousness. Right, so it's just a passing interest in the planet Earth, and then it gets an idea like the other entities are kind of like, ignoring it and not like thinking it's weird because it's obsessing over this. So this entity has this passing idea like, I'm gonna show those the only reason they hate this stuff, like the only reason they don't like anime, the only reason they don't like these video games and these stories is because they're created by these little tiny insect people. What if I created my own anime and then I showed it to my entity colleagues? Then they might like it. I'm gonna show them what it is. Once again, just like a stupid passing thought in this thing's head. In already what was like just a passing interest. So to this thing, it's like a matter of like seconds when it's like, okay, that's stupid. Create my own anime, that's stupid. I'm just gonna move on with doing other things. But to us, that's like several years that we have to like cope with. So what this basically results in is this thing takes a random assortment of human beings from our planet Earth. From all sorts of, all the different cultures and countries. It doesn't care about anything like that. It doesn't care about how, our countries get along, because it's nothing. We're all humans to this thing. We're just all one collective. So it just takes whatever it can take. Maybe there's like a selection process to see which ones would actually play along with it. That would actually be able to cope with like, oh yeah, by the way, there's aliens in the world. I think there's a significant amount of people that would just freak out and have a heart attack from that alone. So maybe there's like some bullshit selection process, but for the most part, it just takes whatever. and it places these select humans in a pocket dimension that it creates, and it basically simulates the plot of a shonen anime, and it sets us through this, and the people that are in this situation have to go through these, and the basic deal here though is that this entity is not doing this. It doesn't have any thoughts for our well-being. It doesn't care. Like I said, it's not doing this because, he wants to treat us to something cool. He's doing this just to maybe, impress the other ones of its interest. So, he has a basic setup. He basically writes his own fan fiction where he's like, okay, you're going to go through this and you're going to be the main character and this person's going to be the lead character, and the protagonist, and this one's going to be the antagonist, and this is going to be what your abilities are, and it can do all this stuff. It can give us magical weapons and all this assortment of things and have us go through this. And the kicker of this whole thing is, I know I just spent like 15 minutes explaining to you this whole alien concept. The people that get sucked into this have no idea about any of this shit, have no idea that this entity is really the thing that's pulling the strings, have no idea why they're here. From a human perspective, it's just they get teleported into this other fucking universe. And it's like, all right, we're doing this. You have to fight against that giant dragon, or you got to do this or that or whatever. And that's all we know. And it's over the course of the story arcs in this fiction that we slowly begin to figure out what's going on here. That, most of us could just assume, oh, we're in another universe and that's just how this universe works. But then we start to put it together. We start to think about it and be like, wait a second, there's a universe that's exactly like a shonen anime. That's kind of odd. And so I really want this to be a thing. I don't want the alien to just be like the impetus. I don't want it to be just like the trigger and then that's it. I want it to be like eventually like a main focus of this story, the humans figuring out what this thing is and where where humanity's place is on the universal totem pole. It's like, if this is like the entirety of the universal totem pole, like bacteria and protozoa, like the very basic form of life, are on the bottom. Humans are about right here. These entities are about right here, and then the rest is like a mystery. Yeah, so that's basic, and then you go through like the story of an anime, and there's different story arcs, and it all culminates, and because it's a story, because it has to have like different elements of a story, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end, it has to have a climax, it has to have, the rising action and all that shit. Like this entity knows all about our forms of storytelling, so it understands that there has to be like a reward at the end, there has to be a good payoff. It can't just be like humans go and fight against this evil guy and then they win. There has to be something in return. So the entity is basically going to set it so that it's like whoever manages to the winner of this event or whatever gets anything they want. They can, because it can create anything it wants. If you want like Thor's hammer from Marvel Comics, it can do that. It's like, fine, here you go. Like I said, is that irresponsible? Well, it doesn't give a shit. You can go back to Earth with Thor's hammer. Or if you want to live in an anime, if you want to live in Game of Thrones or any form of fiction, it can create a pocket universe that's an exact replica of that world of fiction. So for the human beings, it's going to be something like, this is an ultimate prize for us. Have you ever wanted to exist in have you ever wanted to exist in a video game or in a world of fiction? Have you ever wanted an artifact from anime? This thing is going to set it up so if you can make it through its fan fiction, basically, you can have one of these things as a reward. Not because it gives a shit, just because it has to have some sort of conclusion to this that it makes sense, from a storytelling perspective. I also want to delve into the human being characters a little bit. I want to have it like, there's people that like, oh, I can't wait to get out, because there's people that feel like, I'm trapped in my life and this world is so boring and this world is shit. I want to live in this fantasy world. Well, they get sucked into a fantasy world and then they start coping with the fact that, wait, I don't like this either. And then you start realizing, wait a second, it's not, it's not about the world changing. It's about me. It's like psychologically, it wasn't a problem with the world, why I hated it or why I felt like I didn't belong. It was me or something like that. I really want to deal with those kind of issues with this. I want to talk about things like on a cosmic level, much more beyond human beings and human understanding. Is this complicated to anyone? Probably. Considering I just came up with it 2 days ago, there's probably a lot of holes you can point out with this. But that's basically my idea. I got nothing else beyond this. Maybe I'll work on this a little bit more, but I suck at writing. Whenever I try to sit my ass down and write this shit out, it never works out the way I want. But that's basically, I just wanted to get my idea out there. For anyone that enjoyed this, fine. For anybody that was massively confused, fine. For anybody that turned off the video a quarter of the way through this because they were bored shitless, you're not here right now, but fine. That's the way it goes. All right. Well, thanks. I gotta get going. But yeah, that was this. Whatever this was. Signing out.